Communities of Brutu Federal Constituency, standing in the name of Honorable Julius G. Pondi. Honorable Pondi is now invited to move the motion.
Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Julius Babuzo Pondi. I represent the very good people of Brutu Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker, in Dogomie from Delta State. A motion on the recent crude oil spillage in communities of Brutu Federal Constituency. The House notes the recent massive crude oil spill in Dogomie community in Brutu local government area of Delta State that wreaked havoc on the people and the environment. Also note that the spillage occurred on Tuesday, 24th April 2008 at 4 different spots on the 24-inch Trans-Ramos crude oil pipeline owned and operated by Shell Petroleum Development Company, SPDC. Also aware that as at the time the report of the spillage was made to the public, the SPDC was reported not to have demonstrated any commitment to the plight of the people and the environment of the devastated communities. Concerned, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, that even though the SPDC has reportedly begun to take stock of the damage to its pipeline, it has not demonstrated any commensurate commitment to a remediation of the polluted areas and the mitigation of the aquatic resources of the people. Worried, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, that a report of the joint investigative team on the Dogomie spill made by the SPDC, the Department of Petroleum Resources, DPRO, and the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSRA, is said to be made public. Alarmed that the recent spill is so enormous that not only the communities in the Dogomie area are adversely affected, but several other communities in Delta State are even beyond are equally immersed in the crude oil flood. Further worried that multinational oil companies have often demonstrated unrestrained inclination to shortchange local communities whenever a spillage occurs in order to avoid accepting responsibility for acts of corporate negligence. Saddened that almost 1 month after the Dogomie spill, the SPDC and the federal government are yet to provide any form of relief materials and medications to the affected communities. Mr. Speaker, honorable members. Resolve 1. Condemn the lukewarm approach of the SPDC in taking steps to come to the aid of the affected communities and commence immediate spill cleanup of the affected communities. Condemn the lukewarm approach of SPDC in taking steps to come to the aid of the affected communities and commence immediate spill cleanup of the affected communities. 2. Urge the Ecological Fund Office in the Presidency, Shell Petroleum Development Company, SPDC, and the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to provide relief materials to the affected communities. 3. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, also urge on the federal government to demonstrate more commitment to providing urgent solutions to the welfare of affected communities whenever there is oil spillage in any oil producing, prospecting, and exploiting communities in Nigeria. Mandate the Committee on Emergency and Disaster Preparedness to ensure compliance. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I so move. The people of Brutu Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker, I'm from Delta State. Mr. Speaker, this is a very straightforward motion, but I need to say 1 or 2 things. Mr. Speaker, somewhere around last week, my constituents, the community in Dogomie community invited me to come to have a first-hand assessment of a spill that occurred about 3 weeks ago that is yet to be attended to by the Shell SPDC. Mr. Speaker, when I got there with another team of persons, you will be amazed at the volume of the spill that occurred at the community. Mr. Speaker, this is not the first time people are experiencing spill, particularly from my constituency. Mr. Speaker, the result has always been the same. The very slow response that these oil companies deal with issues of spill. Mr. Speaker, the this particular spill occurred in 4 points in the same 24-inch transformers pipeline that was laid some 25 years ago. Mr. Speaker, I must say that these oil companies are very slow. They don't carry out integrity tests. On their part, what they are after always is how the crude oil can flow and how they can smile to the bank. Mr. Speaker, since this incident occurred, Shell has always been concerned on how they can effect repairs immediately and allow crude oil to flow. Mr. Speaker, you'll be surprised that when I visited the community, 3 weeks after the spill, nothing had been done, but yet Shell had mobilized equipment to replace the one that was damaged. And the committee was agitated and they said, no, until you tell us the cause of this spill, until you tell us whether it is sabotage or it is equipment failure, you cannot effect repair. Mr. Speaker, I have to talk to the committee people to say that they should restrain, they should be calm, that we are going to get back to them by way of saying this in this house, drawing attention of these people, the honorable members in this house, to come to the aid of my community, my constituents. Mr. Speaker, the people of the community have to speak. Their major source of livelihood is to fish and to farm. Mr. Speaker, for the past 1 month or so, there has never been any act of fishing or farming because all their farmland has been degraded, has been polluted by this singular spill. Mr. Speaker, when I went there, we discussed and they told me that unless Shell come out to say the cause of the spill, that there will be an unrest. Mr. Speaker, it is on record that SPDC have gone to the community with the DPRO and NOSRA people to ascertain the cause of the damage, but as we speak, they are yet to make known whether it was sabotage or it was an act of failure of their own equipment. Mr. Speaker, let me also say that if this were to be sabotage, as we speak, the Nigerian army will have militarized everywhere and forcefully effect repair against the people's wish. Mr. Speaker, this, for me, is an act of equipment failure, which I want to believe that they will own on to. But, sir, even as we speak now, noble members, as a result of this spill, there is so much hunger in the town, there is so much sickness in the town, no medications have been provided, no food have been provided for the people to eat or to ameliorate the immediate effect that this disaster has had on them. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm appealing to this House, honorable members, that first, the federal government and SPDC should look for a way to send across relief materials to them and also medications, so as to, in the interim, take care of the basic need.
Honorable colleagues, order in the House.
When a genuine and concrete program will be carried on to take care of this. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, thank you very much for the time. I want to urge all of us to support this motion so that my people can once again go back to their normal life. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
I serve it.
Honorable members, I rise to join my brother. My name is Honorable Randolph Iworene Brown, representing Degma Bonifera constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to sympathize with my brother Julius Ponde, because what we do is to let the world know, like the proverbial bird that says, it's not shouting for what is holding it to leave it, but let the world know the way it is going. These issues are not new. It is shameful that a month after a spillage occurred, statutory agencies saddled with the responsibility of doing some specific function will refuse to act. It shows that the government Those of us from the oil-bearing communities have been condemned to slow death. This is not the first time we are shouting that NOSRA had not acted, NEMA refused to act, and government not coming to the aid of the people. And they will cry, we have avengers. They are destroying pipelines. When Shell will refuse to measure the integrity, carry out integrity tests on the pipelines they laid, some of them almost 50 years, some 30 years. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, let us join hands with our brother Pondi today. Tomorrow, it will be some other person's turn. For people, agencies to rise up to their responsibility. Because the way we are doing, the way these agencies behave, it seems they are not accountable to anybody. It is time for us to call them to be accountable to us, to the people. Because if we don't do it, we are heading towards anarchy in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable members, let's all join hands with our brother today to condemn what has happened and call on the agencies to act appropriately. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm Sergius Ose Ogun. I represent Esan Northeast, Esan Southeast, and I am from Edo State. Mr. Speaker, I just want to add a little to what my brother, Honorable Pondi, just said. But I would rather lay the blame on the doorstep of DPR and NOSDRA, and indeed NNPC. Because these pipes in the first case are insured. These pipes are insured. So if they were laid some 25 years ago, anything could have happened. So if they are ruptured, there's insurance covering this. But in any case, the NOSDRA Act gives them enough power to intervene in the event that any spill is reported. But the way it works, when you report any spill, NOSDRA will be waiting for DPR to give the go-ahead. Then I'm wondering, what is the role of NOSDRA if that's the case? And DPR will always tell you they don't have enough personnel. But you go to NOSDRA office in Warri, it's spilling with human beings. The office is full, even the foyer, you have people sitting down there, others are standing. So at the end of the day, you just expose the community for nothing. Then we come to NNPC. It's a joint venture. The SPDC we are talking about today, that joint venture is SPDC, Total, and Ajib. But NNPC has a higher percentage of this. So Shell is just the operator of the asset. So if we take our eyes away from the government, as in NOSDRA, DPRO, and NNPC, and just be chasing Shell, yeah, it might be easier to hold the operator, but we need these big ones to come in and take responsibility for this act. Till we begin to attack it like that, we might just end up talking about the oil companies, and at the end of the day, it's our people that are suffering. You are impacting the livelihood of these people. What they do largely is farming. They farm fish, they are fishermen. Then if you pollute the water, how are they going to feed? How are they going to train their children? Like I said, we can blame the oil companies from today till tomorrow, but we want solution. And at the end of the day, even when they decide out of what they are going through now to break these pipes, we can only sit down here and complain. But it's affecting the last time we claimed we went into recession because pipes were broken. But we need to take care of this situation right now. So, Mr. Speaker, the point I'm making is that we should get NOSDRA, the regulatory bodies, NOSDRA, DPR, to get up and do their work. We should also get NNPC, that's a partner, a major partner of this asset, to also do their bit. So when we address it this way, I think we'll get a quicker solution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my highly esteemed colleagues.
Right Honorable Speaker, and my distinguished colleagues. I remain Awaji Inombek, Dogomie, Abantei. Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, this is one of the very sad moments that we have always had. Sad in the sense that for about 60 years, a people have gotten to go through this over and over and over again. Some people have paid with their lives over issues like this. Ken Saro-Wiwa is an example. He lived, he attempted to defend his people, to defend his environment, and we know how he ended. He ended being considered a criminal because he stood for his people. 60 years after oil has been found within our territory, we are still faced with issues of pollution. It is sad. It's unfortunate. Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, let us not forget that for a lot of years, we have been talking about Ogoni cleanup. Ogoni cleanup. How did Ogoni get to the point of Ogoni cleanup? Factors like this. Oil spills. They will seep into the soil, seep everywhere. As we speak, nothing has been cleaned, not to talk of remediation. This is a fact that we know. United Nations have written, nothing has been done. Rather than contain what we have in our hands, we are having more and more spillage in the same environment. It is on record that even the groundwater that people source is poisonous. The concentration of benzene in the waters around that area is questionable. Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, it simply means that everybody living around that area has been subjected to death, and the death is very gradual. Gradual but very painful. This singular act and these actions over the years have also led to massive poverty, Mr. Speaker. When you pollute the river, we are fishermen. It simply means that you have taken away from us our life. You have taken away our livelihood. And what do you expect us to do? Infrastructure, none available. And when the people stand up to tell the world that this is who we are being cheated, the next thing you find, deployments of whatever.
Zachary, stop making noise.
Mr. Speaker, even the crocodiles will refuse to smile in the waters that have been polluted.
Dasuki.
The crocodiles will refuse to smile. And there are agencies that are saddled with these responsibilities. Is it because those who live in the environment are considered to be minorities? Can that justify the essence and the reason for this abandonment? If you consider and you look at the manpower available within this industry, the persons around that area are not also available. They are completely absent, because I will feel very sad that a man from Burutu or from Bomadi is at the management level of Shell, and there is this spillage for over a month, and he will not remember that his people are suffering. They are marginalized. They don't have provisions in the oil establishments, no employment, no infrastructure, the land is polluted. How do you expect us to survive? How does this nation expect us to sit back and continue to applaud this injustice? Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, I think that this House should do all within its powers to ensure that this does not happen again. It's not just a matter of cleaning up the spillage and attempting to do remediation, but let us make sure that these oil companies, that their activities do not bring us back to where we want to escape from. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Iri Doye, representing Yenagoa Kolokuma Opokuma Federal Constituency of Bayelsa State, Amani German. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'd like to join my colleagues in thanking Julius Pondi for once again bringing to the fore the issues and the problems and the challenges of the Jaw people and of the Niger Delta people, which has led to loss of lives and which has led to the decay and near extinction of that environment and the people. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, Nigeria is an oil-producing country because that environment belongs to Nigeria, because the people there are Nigerians, and that Nigeria cannot be feeding fat at the expense of the people of that environment. It has led to a lot of issues. Initially, it was a 12-day revolution by Isaac Adaka Boro, who abandoned his studies in the university because of what he saw as injustice, as oppression, as environmental decay, and the people dying in abject poverty. Mr. Speaker, Isaac Boro abandoned his studies in the University of Benin and carried out a 12-day revolution, which landed him to being killed.
Zachary, please.
And Mr. Speaker, those things are still happening today. And that is why there is an oil spill, and all the government and the oil companies are interested in is to repair the pipeline. Nobody cares what happens to the people. And this spill is not just in Burutu. As it happens in Burutu, it is moving from Delta State down to Bayelsa State. And in Bayelsa State, the constituency of Honorable Fred Agbedi, I am sure that a lot of my colleagues saw him going in there into the creeks, into his community with the people. And Mr. Speaker, these are the reasons why when we cry, those of us who don't understand think that we are looking for resource control. I jokingly told my friend from Adamawa when he said resource control, I said resources expropriated. Our resources are not ours because, I mean, out of my 100%, you give me a paltry 13%, and the next minute you make jokes of, you drink ogogoro with it, you drink kai kai with it. Give me the 100%, let me drink kai kai with it. Then you have cause to ask me. So, Mr. Speaker, I will not go all that hog. A lot of my brothers, my colleagues have spoken, and I think that we need to take this very seriously. There are a lot of times these motions have come to this floor. I remember at the beginning, at the life of this 8th Assembly, I also brought a motion on oil spill in my area that led to the death of about 10 persons, and out of which the oil company was offering a paltry 10 million naira to be paid to people who died. And the people rejected it, and nothing was done. And that motion came here, and up till now, I have not even seen any report on that motion. Mr. Speaker, this country cannot continue like this. Honorable colleagues, we need to bring justice to this country. And it is only on this floor that those who have been to the Niger Delta environment, who have been there, will come back and say, is this what you people are facing? I think that a lot of the people who are in charge of oil and the oil industry, who fly all over the world, when you cannot have a road to Burutu, you cannot have a road to Brass, and they fly from Abuja to Brass, to Boni, to Brutu,
Zachary, go back to
and the people living there. Some of them do not even know how a car looks like because there is no access. And as I keep saying, it is always a tale of two cities. According to Charles Dickens, you have one city with infrastructure, you have one city with lights, you have one city with all the goodies in the world, and then you have another city by the side of it, maybe a kilometer away from it, where the oil is actually gotten. The people are primitive. The people do not know how a car looks like. The people do not know that billions are taken away from their land daily. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, let us support this motion and let us bring this injustice to an end. My amendment, Mr. Speaker, first is on resolution number 1. And this is how it reads. To condemn the usual attitude, because this thing is a daily occurrence. We will keep talking about it. It's a daily occurrence. The attitude is a usual one. To condemn the usual lukewarm approach of SPDC in taking steps to come to the aid of the affected communities and commence immediate spill, cleanup, and remediation, very, very important, remediation of the affected communities. Lastly, I add resolution number 5. Before now, the oil companies tell us when these things happen that it is because of sabotage. But I'm happy this time around, SPDC is owning up to say it is an equipment failure. And these equipments, these pipelines have been there for 40 years, 50 years. Just like Honorable Say just noted. The agencies, federal government agencies responsible to look at these issues have a lukewarm attitude also. They don't care, the pipes are there, and anytime they rupture, the environment becomes a problem. And so I add resolution number 5 to carry out an integrity test on all the oil pipelines owned by SPDC to avert future occurrences. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.